You are listening to the Average Pundits podcast.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Average Pundits podcast, your home of all things Premier League. And today we have what could go down as one of the more controversial podcasts. We'll have to see what our end results are, but we're dissecting two of the Premier League's greatest ever sides. We're taking into mind other accolades, but we're a Premier League podcast. We're going to focus on the Premier League efforts, and we are comparing the United 99 treble winning team, their Premier League side, versus the Manchester City 2018 Premier League champion side. But as always, I am joined by my awesome co-host, Reese. How you doing, Reese?
I'm surviving. We're still in pandemic mode, as we all are, but we have a very interesting podcast, as you say, comparing arguably two of the greatest Premier League sides of all time. Highly regarded for both the seasons that they had, trophies that they won, players that they had, statistics we're going to list off. Stay tuned for all of that in this podcast.
Yeah, got a lot to reel off. And 99, that was the year I was born. So, a fond year for United. Not too many memories personally, but obviously you get recounted from all the United fans of yesteryear. So you go back and watch the efforts of and the heroics of that side. But an incredible, legendary team with some of the best players to grace the game. So without further ado, shall we start looking at the United team, what they were lining up with back in 99, Reece?
Yeah, so obviously they had the good old Fergie in charge as the boss. Arguably, again, probably the greatest manager in Premier League history.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we'll list up. They play the 4-4-2 for the majority of the season, I believe. They had Peter Schmeichel in what I believe was his final season before moving on in the summer. I mean, we just listed off a podcast in the last episode where we were talking about Peter Schmeichel very heavily and, having the debate whether he is, the greatest goalkeeper in Premier League history.
Yeah, we were. And it was interesting because he had a lot of competition, but again, his accolades, even more in particular, that particular season, you couldn't really deny him. But if you haven't seen that podcast, go and check that one out. That's the last one we released on YouTube and streaming services. But yeah, Peter Schmeichel between the sticks, can't go wrong there.
Yeah, and then we go into the back four. Gary Neville, who is now more known for arguing with Jamie Carragher on Sky Sports. Jaap Stam, who was a mean defender back in his day.
Yeah.
Looking kind of him and Veron are kind of like the mean boys of what this kind of 99 to like 2003 era of Manchester United. Ronnie Johnson, who he was also showing levels of class in this United side. Dennis Irwin, who was also he was the captain. He was the one that was leading this United side, and he was the one that was giving it all these fans the memories, and he's going to go down as a Manchester United legend forever. So then we go into the midfield. On the right side, we've got everyone's favorite Pepsi drinker, David Beckham. He's a legend of the game. Probably the most marketable man in the whole of football, arguably, in terms of English players anyways. Then we go on to another guy who is now more known for arguing on Sky Sports, but this time with Mika Richards. It's Roy Keane. He hates dancing, and he also hates fans, apparently. So, Roy Keane, again, he's one of the most stern-faced players you'll ever meet. And yeah, I probably just wouldn't want to meet him, to be honest.
Oh, I reckon he'd be a laugh when you got to know him. It'd take a while. You break down the exterior, and I reckon he's all smiles.
No, you try and take a picture. It's like, I don't get these selfies. I don't.
Is that Irish?
Yeah, I tried it. I'm gonna have Roy Keane coming to hunt me down soon. And then his midfield partner, Paul Scholes. Obviously, the debate is always, him, Lampard or Gerrard. I know which one I prefer, but it's all up in the air because they're all really similar in terms of how they play. Obviously, one's a better passer, one's a couple a better scorer. One's an overall better player. So I'm not going to argue with that. Then we move on to the left side, who, in fact, didn't have as good of a season in this year, but went on to have one of the best Premier League runs as a player, and that's Ryan Giggs. His blistering pace. He was kind of starting out as a rookie around this time as well.
Yeah.
So he was insane, but this was kind of the start of his career where he wasn't as prolific, wasn't as decisive in front of goal. And then we've got the danger men up front. These guys ran a rot this season. Dwight York and Andy Cole up front. You think of probably Manchester United's best ever attack. That's definitely up there with Tevez, Ronaldo, and Rooney from the 2008 season.
Yeah, it's really tough to compare those. I mean, it's good you mentioned with Ronaldo, Rooney, and Tevez as well, because without a doubt, those are the most well-rounded attacks we've ever had. But York and Cole, I think, even now, I still think sometimes they get a bit disrespected just based on how good of a pairing they were. Dwight York that season, absolutely fantastic as well, individually, but Cole, you can't take anything away from any of them. They were both absolutely brilliant, and they were pushing each other to be better as well. But you mentioned some real standout players in that team. Dennis Irwin, I think he's the one which I think also deserves a lot of credit. In terms of that left-back position, he has to go down as, if not the best left-back in the Premier League. Obviously, now we're seeing more adapted left-backs who are more attacking-based. We're seeing a lot more variety in that position. But in his day, Dennis Irwin in that left-back position, he made it his own. And he was the United left. He was the go-to guy for a long time. And, I think his kind of leadership in that team and his influence was what spurred on Roy Keane to become the next kind of the next poster for United captains. And, we've been lacking that for a very long time. We like in terms of the modern day United, but both Keane and Irwin, born leaders. And I think obviously you see Keane on Sky Sports, and he's like Marmite. You love him or you hate him, really. But some of the calls he comes out with are a bit questionable at times. But you can tell he's just a man that still has a passion for the game, and I think he gets frustrated, especially with United, at just the lack of leadership there. Like, do you think he would have been a good captain to play under? Do you reckon he'd have been a bit terrifying?
I wouldn't have liked to have been shouted at by him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, just seeing him try and start in fights is kind of,
Yeah.
I bet he tried to start fights with his own teammmates.
Oh, 100%. Well, I reckon it happened to a lot of clubs behind the doors, but like in the changing room, I think you're not necessarily fine, but you want your captain going in there as a fan and trying to suss out exactly what was going wrong in that game for you not to pick up all 3 points. And I have no doubt in my mind Keane was a perfect enforcer at doing that.
There was a video that I saw. I can't remember where it was, but it was like Roy Keane talking about this Christmas quiz thing that they had, and I think it was like around like 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
The entire United team was in this massive room. They were in teams, like groups of teams, and it came down to the last question, and I believe like Fergie and all of like the coaching staff got the last question right, and they all like were celebrating and stuff. Roy Keane and like all the group of lads just look mad. They look so angry that they've just lost this Christmas quiz. And Roy Keane's just like walking out like he's, just got slapped in the face by a fish.
Yeah, but he see his demeanor, and I don't think like how he is in the studio and how he is on the pitch, you can 100% see the crossover and how he'd be a terrifying person to play with, well, to get on the wrong side of, but he's someone you want in your team. And he was a great player as well. But obviously a couple of other big ones in there. Giggs, Neville, Beckham, they're all part of that early class of United talent, which was going to go on and become some of the biggest legends at the club. And Beckham, again, you mentioned one of the most marketable footballers now, 100%. And that was one of the main names we mentioned early on back in when we did like season 1 of this, when we did our marketable footballers podcast. Again, an interesting watch if you haven't seen it, we like to think. So go check that out. But there's no doubt in my mind, David Beckham, back in the day, I also think he's so marketable now, he almost gets discredited for what he did on the pitch. Because he was a fantastic player, and I would have loved to have seen him for longer at United. But he went off and he went to Milan, he went to Real Madrid, he went to Galaxy, PSG, and was able to carry on his form at different varying levels. But there's no doubt in my mind that I think he gets disrespected quite a lot. And having him in that 99 team would only have been an improvement to the squad, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely. You look at a guy like Beckham, and he is way more known for going to Madrid, the World Cup incidents, the free kick against, I think was it Greece, sending us to the World Cup,
Yeah.
or the Euro, sorry. Just his return from that. He's more known for his hairstyles than his stints at Man United. Every kind of magazine that I had growing up as a kid, you kind of were looking, oh, here's David Beckham's, hairstyles through the years. Not his goals or his players or his games. It's more his hairstyles, and his facial hair.
Yeah.
Adverts.
The fixation on him and like how he kind of carried himself over his football, it was very present. It was there. I remember it as well. I remember growing up, and a lot of the focus was barely on any of his playing style. But then the only other person that I thought to worth a really good mention in there, apart from everyone in that team was fantastic, but Jaap Stam as a centre back as well. My God, he was terrifying. He was terrifying, but he was one of those classic no nonsense defenders as well. Very similar to Vidic, but just looked scarier. He genuinely was just, again, a fantastic servant at United, and a good player over at Milan as well. And I think it was too long ago. I think he was playing in Soccer Aid, and I remember in that he was just as good in that as he was before. He was aggressive. He was really aggressive, but he got the job done. But again, he was another defender that I remember growing up hearing about, and then going back and watching more of, and thinking, wow, this guy was genuinely quite a good player.
Yeah, he's just a really aggressive egg, isn't he?
Yeah, an aggressive egg.
You would not like to be the striker lining up against Stam.
Yeah, no, you would not want to be at all. But if we compare that team on face to what City were dealing with in there, again, arguably one of the greatest Premier League seasons for an individual side. What was City lining up with?
So this was actually the season where they had the cameras following them from Amazon Prime, I believe. So I followed this season. I know this season very well because I watched the entirety of that season. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Obviously not as good as the Spurs one because it had a lack of Mourinho. But so this is what they lined up with. So in goal, they've got Edison, who a lot of this team is unchanged. There are a few players that aren't there anymore. Either have retired, or like gone elsewhere to retire, or just were kind of homesick, really.
Yeah.
So they got Edison, Carl Walker, who is now kind of in competition with João Cancelo, Aymeric Laporte, who they brought in January of that season, and he kind of, well, I say shaped their season. He didn't really have to change much because they were still playing it unreal.
Yeah.
And then Vincent Kompany, obviously, arguably one of City's greatest players in the modern era.
Yeah.
Went on to play in Belgium again. He's now the coach. I think he's player coach now. So, phenomenal player. Then they had a couple of injury woes. I remember Benjamin Mendy signing for them, but keeps getting injured. I forgot that he was 25.
Yeah.
It's outrageous.
It's crazy.
So they kind of played. I think they played Fabian Delph at left back that season. Who I think he made the move to Everton, didn't he?
Yeah, he made the move to Everton afterwards, but like that, yeah, like you said, he basically filled in that role. Him, I think Zinchenko every now and again, but predominantly Delph was the favourite choice.
Because I think Zinchenko was like really young at that point, so I don't think he got much like in terms of game time. I genuinely think Delph was the starting left back for most of the season. Then Benjamin Mendy came in towards the end.
Yeah.
And then they got Fernandinho, who still kind of features in the team today. Obviously not as prominent. Rodri kind of takes that central defensive midfielder role from Fernandinho. This is actually before I carry on. This is actually like in terms of comparisons. United obviously played the 4-4-2 under Alex Ferguson. Man City played the 4-3-3 under Pep Guardiola, who is more of that's kind of more of a fluid formation, especially in terms of today's football.
Yeah.
Is concerned. Kind of opens up the play more midfielder, more central midfielders, spread the wings.
Yeah.
And then we go on to again one of Manchester City's all-time, best players, David Silva, who's now gone to play back in Spain with Sociedad. Again, what a player!
Yeah,
What a player!
Again, and he is another one which will go down in history books. But I mean, he just helped Sociedad to like their first trophy in I don't know how many years, but they won something over in Spain, and I remember seeing that and thinking that he is just honestly his trophy cabinet unmatched. It's absolutely fantastic.
He's unreal. He's like at City, his time there. Like I think he was like at the same time that everyone knew he was good. I still think that he was criminally underrated.
Yeah,
Like all of the headlines were on Aguero or De Bruyne. Silva was not in the spotlight for too long, and he was there for a long time.
yeah. I think when he first joined, I think it was all Silva was the hype, and then like you said, it did die down because they had it got to a stage where City were just having like teams of just fantastic players just all around the pitch, and it almost sometimes it just diminishes the spark of the individual brilliance that he had. But we can look back on it now and think, wow, how important was he in terms of that City team? But at the same time, not in a bad way, but City haven't missed him because they've been so able to rebound from it and get new players in.
Exactly, and that kind of leads into my next, the next guy on the team, which is Kevin De Bruyne. Coming in, I think he came in 2016, so maybe like the season just before, maybe not the season just before, but like season before
Yeah,
that. And he was unbelievable, as he always is. One of arguably again will go down as one of City's best player. And as of recording now, here on the Wednesday, he has just signed a 4-year extension.
I mean that is fantastic news for City. But I mean, I think that was a while ago, not too long ago. That was something that hung in the balance because we weren't sure if City were going to get hit with that Champions League ban, but they managed to wriggle out of that somehow. And I think that was the large part of it because they're going to win the league this season. They've got a good chance of doing the Champions League. They won 2-1 against Dortmund last night in the first leg. A very good game. Some very questionable decisions from the referee in terms of Dortmund, but Champions League, we don't talk about that too much, but VAR once again, wow. But yeah, Kevin De Bruyne, 4 years, what can go wrong there?
Indeed, we don't talk about last night's Champions League. So yeah, then we move on to kind of like the front three, the attacking, the deadly trio. I remember seeing this trio for the entirety of that documentary and throughout this entire season, thinking, how have they got away with this? So the two wingers, Raheem Sterling, who made the move from City to Liverpool, I think again might have been the same season as De Bruyne joining, either that or the season just before. Such a good player. And the player that he's become way better at finishing. He's always had the pace and the dribbling to show for it. He's combining that strength too. He's getting stronger, and arguably he could be England's number one starting on that right hand side, or even if say if Sancho starts on that right hand side, he'll start on the left, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean he has to be in there, and also any England side that we go to the Euros with is stronger if we take Sterling anyway. I think every now and again he can be frustrating at times, but as an individual player in terms of talent, undeniable, and he's worked so hard to get to where he is. But in terms of a player for City as well, he is another one that I think when it's all said and done, he'll go in the City history books as a fantastic signing.
Absolutely, and if only Kane would have squared it to Sterling in that game.
Too controversial.
It'd be coming home. And then obviously on that left hand side, we had Leroy Sané, who moved on to Bayern Munich in the summer, I think.
Yeah.
What a player! He's so fast. He had such a deadly left foot too. He didn't have to cut in from a right hand side. He could cut in and shoot with his left foot across the face of goal and go in the other corner. I think his skill and his speed, it's so good, and he's still young. He's so good, and he's going to contribute to another Bayern Munich, really good title challenge and a Champions League run for Bayern Munich, and he's just fantastic.
It's a shame for whatever reason that City situation, or shame for City that didn't work out because, I don't think Pep necessarily wanted to get rid of him, but also you can't just keep someone like him on the bench. You just can't. It's a crime. So fair play to him for going over to Bayern, and he's going to have plenty of success over there because he is a fantastic player. But again, where do you even start with that City team? Obviously, because we grew up. We were already grown at that point, but we were watching football religiously throughout that season, so we were seeing regularly the talents of these players, as opposed to us being quite a bit younger back in '99, so not being able to see as much, obviously due to birth age and everything.
When United were lifting the title, I think I was, I was probably like a week or two old.
Yeah. So yeah, probably not not the best time that we could have sat and analysed it. But yeah, I mean, City. Where do you even start with them? Because honestly, everyone in that on that team is just superstar quality that season. Even players like Fabian Delph coming in and doing a job at left back. He was really just plugging a hole, but there's still part of it. You can't take anything away from him. And they put in so much money in Benjamin Mendy, and him coming in and performing well that season. And I mean, whatever your opinion is on Ben Mendy, personally, I don't rate him at all.
I don't rate him as a footballer, but he looks like a fun guy to be around at least.
He looks fun. He looks like a good hype man. He can get everyone happy at party or something. But
exactly,
bitch, I just do not rate him.
One of Raheem Sterling's party bashes, Benjamin Mendy would be the first invite, I imagine.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
But one guy that we haven't mentioned in that little squad list, the striker, Mr. Sergio Aguero, who is not going to be renewing his contract for this upcoming season. He's probably going to be moving to maybe maybe Madrid, might be Barcelona, or he could just be playing in David Beckham's team of Inter Miami. Who knows? But
it's tough because part of me thinks that there was always a chance of Aguero going to Madrid or Barcelona earlier on, but Man City were able to keep hold of him, which I think was good. But it's the right decision for him to be moving on now. It's a shame for City, but he's not getting used in the right way, and he's very injury prone, so it's right to move him on. But it wouldn't surprise me if Barca or Real Madrid came in for him, or Atletico, obviously where he started, his European career before Man City. But I think it's looking more likely just based on the kind of how much he has slowed down to potentially go back to Argentina or maybe the MLS.
Yeah, to be fair, it wouldn't be the first time that we've seen a former Atletico striker return to his former club. Obviously Torres doing the rounds, moving from Atletico to Liverpool to Chelsea, doing a bit of a number at AC Milan and stints around the Serie A before then moving back to Atletico Madrid and getting to a Champions League final.
Yeah, but you got Diego Costa as well. That's another, kind of prime example of a player going around for a bit and then going back to the motherland. But there are so many places for him to go. But I mean, in terms of his City career and Premier League as well, he's one of the best strikers the Premier League's ever seen. He really is.
And Manchester City's all-time goal scorer. So he's such a good player. He was chasing Shearer's goal record, and he's going to be extremely motivated this season to try and win the Champions League because there's that report, back in the day where Aguero was like, "I'm not leaving until we win the Champions League."
Yeah,
well, that better be this season, Sergio.
Yeah, I was going to say this is arguably their best chance of doing it. I mean, I don't want to see it, but it's the best chance of doing it this season, I think. But there is just so many fantastic players in there. But we boiled it down. If we have a look at the actual stats of these two sides and see where the goals were coming in and what the teams were performing at, what about Manchester United's '99 side? What kind of stats were they putting up?
Well. Before that, I just want to kind of list off the depth that this United side had as well. They had players that would also fill in for this side. They had a lot of really good players. So they had Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, Teddy Sheringham, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, current manager of Manchester United, and Jester Bloomqvist.
Yeah.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly, there's a Q in there, so I think it's Bloomqvist. I think the Q's silent.
Some of the Swedish names can be they can trip you up,
like Zlatan Ibrahimovic. The goals for Manchester United, they came from mainly Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole.
Yeah,
combined they got a really, really good tally of 25. Was it 25? No, it was 35. 35 goals. I was doing really bad maths. And add on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you got 47 for both of those. So um, Andy Cole, Dwight York. Andy Cole got 17. Dwight York got 18. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got 12. So that was kind of how they rounded out their scoring. They were the top three goal scorers for the season for Manchester United in that 99 side.
Yeah, and like going back now, that if you compare that to the current United side, that's exactly what we're lacking. We're lacking the goals coming in from the individuals and having individually brilliant seasons. Obviously, Bruno has been leading the line, but United need a strong, dominant number 9 who's going out there and getting all the goals. And Martial's been horrendously out of form. Cavani is looking like he's going to move on this season. He had like a little stint at United, but it's been great to see him there. But and he has had some really important goals for us. And it's been, I think if we had him a few years earlier, he would have been the guy. But this season we have to go out and get a number 9. But there's only one man I want. But sadly, I think that the Champions League tie against City last night was almost a trial for Pep to be like, yep, we want you. You're going to come to us. So, I could still dream because, I think Haaland in a United shirt would be fantastic. But you never know. The Ollie link-up could happen. But it's maybe not looking the most likely.
I still think he's going to Madrid.
Madrid, really?
Well, you haven't seen the report saying that he's come to Manchester and talked with City, have you? He's been talking with Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Well, he did Madrid and Barca, but then he went and spoke to United and City as well.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's already done that. But the only problem is that obviously his agent is the one that everyone loves to hate. Is Mino Raiola, and obviously he has a very frayed relationship with both United and City, or more in particular, United as a club and Pep as a person. So that could become a problem. But that shouldn't get in the way of Haaland making the right decision for his next club.
Yeah, he's going to move to Inter Milan instead.
Oh, you never know. You never know. I mean, the way Inter Milan have been going recently, you never know.
Exactly.
But but based on some of those individual stats from that particular team, it's clear to see just how dominant they were, and that is exactly what United are missing in this modern climate. But what about City? Obviously we're only a couple of seasons on, and City are still performing at incredible levels.
Indeed. Again, I'll do the exact same. List off their depth, and they arguably had way more depth in terms of the squad. Ilkay Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Gabriel Jesus, Nicolas Otamendi, who also filled in just before Aymeric Laporte came in. John Stones, who was kind of having a bit of a lapse in his play, obviously picking up so much better form now, playing alongside Ruben Diaz.
Yeah.
Riyad Mahrez and a young upcoming Phil Foden, who has become one of the most mature young players in the league and arguably the best young talent in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah.
And their scoring came from Aguero, who got 21, which kind of trumps, the highest goal tally in this so far. Leroy Sané had 10. Raheem Sterling matched Dwight York's goal tally of 18. So, two Man City players either trumping the United goal tally or surpassing that goal tally.
Yeah.
What an attack.
Yeah, what an attack, man. And also, like you said, the depth is crazy. And City have had that in their back pocket for a long time in terms of depth. And that always seems to be something that tends to be Pep's go-to whenever things aren't going wrong. He tends to talk about depth, and it's like, no, you have depth. You have depth compared to a lot of sides. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. And it's surprising to hear just how dominant. It was only a couple of seasons ago, but you move on and you go back and reminisce about it, and it's surprising to hear just how much of the individual brilliance players had in terms of adding to the goal tally. So I think personally, in terms of goal scoring abilities in that team, you might have to credit City and say there were more natural goal scorers in that side. But as a more well-rounded team, based on everything else they achieved, obviously we're focused on the Premier League, but based on everything else they achieved and how good it was that season for them in a tough competition, I don't know if United still will come out on top. But I mean, what's your opinion? If you had to pick one, where were you going?
So I feel like we got to go into a bit more comparison. So obviously United finished first in the Premier League. They finished with 22 wins in that season. 79 points, which, you know, I'll get on to where they'd finish right now. 3 losses, 13 draws. If you look at that nowadays, that United team would probably get slandered.
Possibly. It could. Well, there's a lot of points there that they could go out and have got, more now. And I think it's when you drop points to the lower clubs, that's when the criticism come out for the big clubs, isn't it?
Well, they beat they lost to second place Arsenal once 3-0 in this, but they only lost 3 times. They scored 80 goals this entire season with the 43 goal difference. This finish was actually worse than Manchester United in the 17-18 season. So that's kind of the comparison that we've got to make to today's football. So when we're making this comparison, I would argue it's kind of current day football compared to, the football of the past, how it's evolved. And I think that's where they are, maybe this argument's kind of not exactly the fairest, because you are comparing an older style and players that weren't the best. There were still issues with the game back then. Whereas now it's more clean, it's professional, it's the best it's going to be for a long time. Obviously comparing that to Manchester City, they finished on is it the first ever 100-point finish?
Yeah, they were the ones to do it.
Centurions, were they? I think that might have been the first team as well to finish with 100 over 100 goals too.
Yeah, it could well be. I'd imagine it is.
I remember that. I remember they were like nailed on to win the Premier League. Watching the City Till I Die documentary, and Pep was just like, "Let's go for the record. Let's go for this record." And they smashed it. They were beating teams left, right, and centre 5-0, 3-0. They finished with a 79 goal difference. I think that's that's going to be one of the greatest Premier League finishes for a long time. And even the season after this, they finished on 98 points, and it was still enough to beat arguably one of the best Premier League sides we've seen as well in that Liverpool side.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how dominant they have been, and like you said, it is tough to compare the football from then to what it is now, because it's differing years. There's quite a lot of a gap between them, and there's a lot of growth as well. And the game's become a lot faster, a lot more aggressive, and there is stuff put in place now to. You'd think majority of the time to make the game better. There's a few questions there, depending on who you are and what your views are, but it's hard to compare them. It's hard not to look at that United team with rose-tinted glasses on for me personally, just because that's the team that I grew up hearing about, and that was like the standard, and that's what I think that's what every United team since then have tried to mold their success on, and it's always they recall that season. You know what I mean? There's other seasons as well, but there's that one that stands out so fluid. So I think personally for me, like I said, it's so hard not to view it without the tinted glasses on, and also it's hard not to compare the outside achievements of football. If you're looking solely Premier League, you could say City are definitely 100% in there. But overall, you'd have to automatically probably give that to United because, Champions League as well. So it's a real tough situation. But the Premier League side of things, it's hard. You can't really argue the stats.
That is true. In terms of, Manchester United obviously won the Premier League, Champions League, and the FA Cup that season. They obviously the famous triple of '99, and then Manchester City in that season won the Premier League and the League Cup. But arguably, the season afterwards, they kind of had the exact same squad and won the quadruple. They won the FA Cup, they won the League Cup, they won the Premier League, and the Community Shield, which is the most important 50p you'll ever see.
Yeah, the most important one, 100%.
But yeah, in terms of like kind of a fair comparison, I compared the top 4 for each of the sides to see who were the biggest competitors. So for Manchester United, the biggest threat, obviously the second place Arsenal, who were phenomenal that season. They had Vieira, David Seaman, Emmanuel Petit, Martin Keown, Dennis Bergkamp, Mark Overmars. They had a prime Nicolas Anelka too.
Yeah.
They only finished 1 point behind and beat United 3-0, and they were undefeated to the champions the entire season.
Yeah.
I think that if it wasn't for a loss against, maybe like a team like Sheffield Wednesday, this 99 United side would not be as regarded highly as maybe this Arsenal side were, because it was incredible.
Yeah, it was at that point in time. It was United and Arsenal, wasn't it? It was the historic Keane Vieira rivalry. It was the aggressiveness on the pitch. It was the nail biting games, which they could have gone either way based on how dominant these sides were. But United were fantastic. Arsenal were just as good. Arsenal were also a fantastic side in the Premier League, and that's what I think. It's so hard because when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, well, United went on, they won the Champions League as well, and it's like, well, we're trying to look at this from a purely Premier League standpoint. So you're trying to remove the outside kind of influences, and obviously just doing that because that's where our specialties lie. But that Arsenal side again pushing United the entire length of the way,
Exactly, and the kind of the rest of the teams that were in there. Third place, Chelsea, pre-money Chelsea, to be honest.
Yeah.
And they had Dennis Wise as a captain. Lol. I mean, he was a decent player back in the day, but he's more known for going on "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here" now.
Yeah.
Chelsea were kind of, I think after Arsenal, I think not to discredit many of the teams in the Premier League that season, but the caliber of the teams kind of take a real step down.
Yeah.
Leeds finished in fourth. They had a prime. They had a prime Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and a young Harry Kewell before making his way to Liverpool. And arguably, they helped Manchester United as their biggest rivals. They beat Chelsea and Arsenal in the season, and if they hadn't have beaten Arsenal, Manchester United wouldn't be sitting there champions right now. So, and it would have been just the Champions League and the FA Cup, and this the achievement of that double isn't as great without the Premier League. So Leeds were kind of the helping hand as the rivals for United in this season.
A really backhanded helping hand.
Yeah.
But can you take anything away from that team just because there were teams pushing them and because there were I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many draws or losses you have. If you finish first in the league, if you have all the wins and you finish first, you've done it, haven't you? And at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to. You can look at some of it's like City this season had a very questionable start to the season. They were looking very slow. Look at the table now. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you come back and get the first place position and you win it, you win it.
Exactly. And we'll talk about City's competition now. In their biggest threat were actually Manchester United in this season. They finished second, coached by Jose Mourinho. Arguably could be another one touted for one of the best Premier League managers of all time. World class players like Pogba, Rashford, Martial. De Gea was probably one of his best moments at this point. They went on. I think did they win the FA Cup this year?
That was when United won the League Cup, I believe.
Oh, was it the League Cup? I think it might be the season before then.
Mourinho won the league with United. He won the League Cup and the Europa League.
Might have been the league before then, but they actually did beat City at the Etihad this season. They beat them 3-2 in that game. So I think that Manchester United, I mean, again this season I think they finished on about 80 plus points. They finished higher than the 99 Manchester United team would have finished.
Yeah.
In this league table, the 99 team would finish third. So then you've got Spurs who finished in third. Harry Kane, obviously, the rise of Poch and his young team. Heung-min Son, Hugo Lloris, Eriksen, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, and they also had a pre-World Cup Dele Alli.
Yeah.
Who was phenomenal, but they kind of were written out as soon as they lost twice to Manchester City. They lost three. They got beat badly. They lost 3-1 and 4-1.
Yeah.
And then obviously in fourth, the guys that went to the Champions League final but couldn't quite do it this year. They got Jurgen Klopp's men in Liverpool. The kind of the start of Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Virgil van Dijk was brought in January. If he'd been brought in before, they might have contended for the title a bit more. But again, both City and Liverpool bringing in defenders. They lost 5-0 at the beginning of the season. That was when Mane decided to Cantona Edison's face off. But then also they were able to beat the champions 4-3. I think City only lost twice that season, and they came from Manchester United and Liverpool.
Yeah. But that season as well, City was so dominant. United finished second, but it wasn't. Again, there were still loads of questions in terms of our football, and a lot of the football in the league as well. They were just sloppy teams, just doing. They're letting City run away with it. And you look back on it now, and that City team were nothing short of phenomenal. And United, obviously, based on the stats, based on how we finished second best in the league that season. If we finished second in the league, you can't deny us. They can't deny them of that. But there were a lot of that. There wasn't enough competition for City that season. Like City just had it, no doubt. And then it wasn't until like the following couple of seasons where like they were actually pushed by Liverpool, and things have changed a little bit, and they had a bit more competition. But obviously, the dominance of what they had then, I think arguably United had more competition in that 99 season than City did in this Premier League season. And that's even with the caliber of the teams now. Although there were big teams against it, like United's 3-2 win, I still remember that's one of my favourite Premier League games of my era of watching the football. Like I adore that game. But if you boil it down and look back now, I think although there were a lot more progressive attacking minded teams for City to try and beat, arguably they didn't have the same level of competition because they were just so dominant in the league. So does that credit United more in their favour because they beat the odds? They had more teams that were pushing them, maybe.
I don't think that they did. I think they only had Arsenal.
Well, even then, having Arsenal as a close rival, kind of going like this throughout the whole of the season, is still more than what City had. They had like a huge kind of point tally ahead of United.
That is true. That is true. But in a way, I feel like the modern style of the game, how it's being played, how all the Premier League since maybe like 2015. Yeah, obviously it's been the City show, but it's also been really unpredictable in terms of results. You look at teams that anyone can beat each other nowadays. Leicester win the Premier League in 2016. It's phenomenal to see all this happening.
Yeah, the league's far more open now, and that's the thing. That's why we love the Premier League so much. That's why we love covering it, because you never know what you're going to get into. And like this season, West Ham. Oh my God, what a fantastic team they've been to watch this season. Individual players, amazing. Jesse Lingard for the Euros. Slip it in at the end.
The PFA Player of the Year.
Slip it in at the end. But overall, just to end on, United or City?
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, go on.
I can't not say City. 100 points, 100, like some of the best defenses in the league. When football has advanced times 2 compared to 99. I think like the style of play, I think the caliber of teams has not been weren't as good back then. The caliber of players. I still think there was a lot of problems maybe with alcohol and stuff like that back then. Obviously there was so many good players, but United had so many world-class players too. And you look back then, I think Beckham's move to Madrid, I'm pretty sure it was like there was something that was taxed at like I think current day he would move to Madrid at like 200 million or something like that, or 250 million.
Yeah, with the inflation now, it would be crazy to think about. But
yeah, for me, I can't not say the attack of Sane, Sterling, and Aguero. I think if you were definitely to put these teams against each other, United wouldn't stand a chance.
I beg to differ. I'm going the other end. I'm saying United. I've got to stay. I can't get rid of the glasses. I think as well, just their rivalry with Arsenal at the time, I think is what nailed it on for me. And I think obviously the point tally for City, they ran away with it. But I feel like the Premier League quality, although there was still quality in that league, I think when it came to challenging City, nobody was up for it. Nobody was up for it. Not even United, who finished second, were up for it. So I think based on how good the rivalry was with Arsenal and how United still managed to tip it over the edge, just purely from a Premier League standpoint, I mean, the rest of the accolades, if we added those in, potentially it would be a completely different argument. But with United doing what they did, I have to say United.
I think just because of like where that United team was, obviously they were fantastic. But again, I can't get past like if they were like in a game, prime versions of each of these players, Manchester City would come out with the win. I don't see any other situation. You've got Fernandinho winning balls in the midfield against Roy Keane and Paul Scholes. You got Kevin De Bruyne splitting the defense of Stam. I think Aguero and Sane are too fast for. Sane would be too fast for a guy like Gary Neville. Sterling would be too fast for a guy like Dennis Irwin.
Gary Neville's got them all day, mate. Gary Neville will do the whole job. But no, we want to know what you guys think. United or City? Obviously, controversial. Would love to know your guys' opinions. Obviously, we're looking from a purely Premier League standpoint. Let us know. Comments, social media, Instagram, we're the Average Pundits. Facebook, we're the same. Twitter, we're Pundits Average. Comment if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on streaming services, give us a follow. But on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. We do very much appreciate all the support we can get. So, don't stop the love, share this around, and, keep it going. We're still aiming for 150 subscribers. So please, keep the ball rolling on that, and hopefully we can meet that fairly soon.
Indeed, yeah. Shout out to all of you listening on Spotify and Apple Music and Anchor and wherever you get your wherever you get your podcasts. You all mean so much to us to keep this going. Let's aim for those 150 subscribers. But yeah, who do you think is the best Premier League side of all time? And maybe we will revisit this and maybe make it a tournament. Maybe we'll discuss the Invincibles next time.
Yeah, could well be. Well, thank you very much as always, guys, and we will see you next time.
For the latest football content, subscribe to The Average Pundits on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite streaming service and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.